Hello there! Today we are going to be talking about tactical patterns. So in chess we have strategy and tactics. Strategy are the long-term plans, so you make moves thinking about the future, 5 or 10 moves ahead. And tactics is the immediate move, it's the here and now. And sometimes if you know a tactical pattern, you can decide the game on the spot. So a pattern is something that repeats itself over and over. We don't have two equal games of chess, but we have patterns that repeat themselves. So in this video we are going to be covering some of these patterns and also some basic concepts in order for us to evolve in chess. Let's start with the first position. We have this position. White is losing an exchange. What is this? So white has a knight and black has a rook. So we say that white is losing an exchange. But due to a tactical pattern, white is gaining material here. How? The queen sacrifices for the rook, giving check. So sacrifice is when we offer a piece of bigger value. So in this case we gave the queen for a rook. King captures and now comes knight here, giving a double attack. So the knight gives check, the check must be defended, and then knight captures queen, and white was losing an exchange, but due to this tactical pattern is winning now a piece. Let's jump for the next one. In this diagram we are going to talk about the discovered check and the double check. So here white can play knight here, giving a discovered check. So we took the knight out of the way of the queen, we are giving check, and next move we are going to capture a rook. Even stronger would be to play knight here, giving the discovered check, and next we are capturing the queen. And now I'm going to give you an example with the rook to see how powerful a rook is in this kind of tactics. So we had here several chances, like giving a discovered check here and then capturing the rook. We could also play rook here, discovered check, and capture the queen next. But we have a stronger move, that is to give rook e8, discovered check, and double check. When we have a double check, there's no way that we can block that check because it's two pieces giving the check, and there's no way to block the check because once again there are two pieces throwing the check. So the only way is for the king to escape, but in this case the king has no escape, has no squares to go, so effectively this is checkmate. So that we can see that in this kind of discovered checks the rook is very dangerous because it's a very agile piece, can go anywhere on the board. Let's jump for the next example. Here we're going to talk about a basic concept that is the pin. And here, thanks to the pin, white is winning material because now white plays bishop here and pins the knight. What is a pin? A pin is when you cannot move the piece, because if you move the piece, then some material is going to fall behind. So this is a relative pin because here black can opt for giving the rook, and here black has no real move. I mean, he can play here, but then we just capture the knight and we are winning material thanks to this relative pin. Now in this example we are going to see what is an absolute pin. It's a more effective pin because when it happens the piece that is behind the pin is the king, so the piece pinned is completely frozen. And how can white use that concept now? It can play rook takes bishop, winning a piece. Because now if rook captures, now we play bishop here and we pin the rook to the king. So the rook cannot move, and after the king moves, bishop takes, rook. So you see, the absolute pin is really effective. Now let's see an example where we mix the both pins, the relative and the absolute pin. So here is white to play, and white has a very strong move here, making use of this double pin. How? Playing queen e7. Now notice that the bishop cannot take the queen because it's pinned. It's an absolute pin, so the bishop cannot move there. It cannot move to this diagonal too, and the bishop is also pinned relatively because of this queen. So if the bishop captures our bishop, the queen can take the black queen. So notice that after this move, black has absolutely no move, no decent move at all. We are threatening also to take the rook. We are threatening to take this bishop with check and capturing the queen next. So here, if black simply capture the bishop, we just capture the queen, and we are gaining more material next because there are two pieces threatened. Now let's talk about the concept of the fork. Let's see this position. And now, after the white moved the bishop here, black can win a piece thanks to the concept of the fork. How? Moving this pawn here, and now the pawn makes a fork on the knight and the bishop, and now he's winning a piece, because after bishop takes, queen comes here, giving the check must be defended, and now queen captures bishop, and we win a piece thanks to the concept of the fork. Next, we are going to talk about skewers. So, in this position is white to play, and white advances the pawn. What is the threat here? For example, if it was white to move again, white could play here, check, king takes, and now we advance the pawn, promoting a queen, and we give a check, and we are getting the rook the next move. So this is the threat. So, of course, that after we move here, black plays rook there. Now if we gave the check, the king capture and the rook controls this pawn. But now white plays here saying, okay, I'm going to remove a queen and my rook defends the queen. So black then captures the pawn, and now white gives a skewer. So you see here we have the skewer. So a skewer is when we have a check and behind there is a piece and we are going to capture it next. So here king must move, and now we just capture the rook. Another example of skewer is this. So white is gaining much material, but white wants to simplify the game. It doesn't want this black queen to going around giving checks and making all kinds of trouble. So how does white simplify this position with a skewer? Playing queen f7 check. And now we threaten to take the queen next move, so the queen takes, and now we give another skewer, and the king moves, and we capture the queen. Next, we are going to be talking about the triple concept: unprotected pieces, intermediate move, and counter check. So in this position, black played queen e4, attacking the unprotected rook. And white thought, okay, I'm not going to defend the rook right away because I'm going to be giving a check, an intermediate move. An intermediate move usually involves a check because the check has to be defended, and then we defend the piece, for example. And white played here thinking that after this check, maybe he can capture the pawn. But black defends the check and say check. And white noticed that when the bishop blocked this check, gave a counter check. And now the king has to defend itself, and the unprotected piece falls. So beware with these intermediate moves, with the counter checks. Unprotected pieces are very dangerous, and sometimes we don't even realize, but they can fall just like this. Next, we are going to be seeing a concept that I like a lot. The concept of the windmill. So here is white to play. Black played this pawn here, and notice that this bishop is pinned, because if the bishop moves anywhere, then the queen takes our queen. So the bishop is pinned. What to do now? Well, white here, because of the windmill, has a great resource, that is playing bishop f6. And now white managed to take on g7 with check, and managed to take the queen. So if black now tries to defend this pawn with any of these moves, the queen just drops. So black has to take the queen, it has nothing better, and now we are going to start our windmill. So rook takes check, king here, and now how does the windmill go? Around and around, so let's start our windmill. Rook captures here with discover check. The king cannot come up, so it has to go here, and now we give another check, putting the king where we want. And now we capture here with check again. Once again the king comes here, and now we capture the bishop. No, we continue the windmill. Check again. Now we capture another bishop with check again. King moves, and now check, and after this we go rook g5 check, and we are going to win the queen. So we gave our queen, but we won the queen back, and in the process we won 2 pawns and 2 bishops. So the windmill is a great resource when it's available. Now, this is an example of piece domination. So here white is losing a rook for some pawns, but the rook is very inactive. And white now is going to dominate this knight. How? Playing bishop d5. And now notice that this knight cannot move, because all the squares of the knight are conditioned because of this bishop. So now black wants to activate the rook, so he plays, for example, here, and now we play b4, and we threaten the knight, and we are going to take the knight, because there's no time for black to defend it, and due to the domination theme, we won a knight. Next we have the theme of rooks on the 7th. Rooks on the 7th row is something very powerful. So here white has already a rook on the 7th, and here black is threatening to take the queen with check. So here white is going to sacrifice the queen for the rook. And now bishop captures, and now puts another rook on the 7th. And now notice that this is checkmate, unstoppable checkmate. There's no defense to this checkmate. So black can give a check, and after this there are no more checks. Black can give all the material, and now, for example, let's suppose a random move, check, and after this, checkmate. So rooks on the 7 is a very constant theme that you should be aware of. It's very powerful. Now we are going to be seeing a theme of the 8th rank weak. So in this position, black has 3 pawns ahead of the king. This is good, this is the objective when you castle. But at some point of the game, you should drill a little hole so that the king can breathe. So you move a pawn and the king can exit if there are themes on the 8th, which is the case here. As the 8th rank is weak, white now here has a resourceful tactics, playing knight, here check, and gives a double attack, threatening the queen. And so if the king moves, we just capture the queen, and if rook takes, we go check here. Only move is this, and now we capture the rook, giving checkmate. So in this last example, we are going to see the simplification theme. White is winning a pawn here, and sometimes an extra pawn doesn't win the game. But in this case, the king is far away, and this pawn, if we trade all the pieces, this pawn will win the game. So we have to simplify the position. We want just to trade pieces. And how to do it? We cannot do it just any way. So for example, if we trade this knight, now black has an intermediate move. Instead of capturing here, it captures here first. And after this, now black captures. And now this game is probably drawn because the black queen comes in and probably is going to give perpetual checks. So it cannot be just any way. We have to pick the order that works. So in this case, we are going to play, instead of knight captures, we take the rook first. And now we threaten checkmate. So queen has to capture. Now we give this check. The only defense is to play queen here. And now we trade the queens. King capture. Now knight takes knight. Pawn captures. And now we win the game by moving this pawn. If this pawn comes forward, the king dominates the pawn. So it reaches the pawn in time so that he cannot promote. And if the king moves, unfortunately doesn't reach the pawn in time because our pawn gets there first. So yeah, I will hope you have enjoyed this tactical pattern, some tactical patterns and some basic concepts that we need to know. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care, bye bye.